everybody. Welcome and thank you for attending our webinar today, Digital Video and Television Production Technology with our author, Amanda Clark. My name is Abby Hess, and I'm the Market Development Manager at GW Publisher. GW provides print and digital resources for career and technical education with a full line of titles across the arts, AV, and technology pathways. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. You're in listen-only mode, but we still want to hear from you. So please be sure to add comments or questions or ideas in the chat box throughout the presentation. We'll spend time at the end of the session answering questions, and my colleague Josh will be monitoring the chat box throughout the session to address them during the Q&A portion of today's presentation. We're so excited to have our author, Amanda Clark, with us today. Amanda is a high school teacher at Southeast High School in Bradenton, Florida, where she is responsible for writing and managing her own curriculum for the 5 television production courses she teaches. Each course is part of the program known as SETV, Southeast TV. Ms. Clark is also the faculty advisor and director of television for the SETV Club, which live streams school sporting events, award ceremonies, and other special projects that have gained national recognition. As part of the program, her students compete in various events in SkillsUSA. Her students have earned more than 15 state championship titles and 8 national championship titles. Ms. Clark also advises the Technology Student Association chapter, where she serves on the Florida TSA State Board of Directors and was recognized nationally as the High School Advisor of the Year for the state of Florida. In addition, Ms. Clark serves on the Florida Department of Education committee that oversees the standards for both the digital video production and television production courses across the state. Amanda is the author of 3 GW titles, including Video, Digital Communication and Production, Digital Photography, and the forthcoming edition of Television Production and Broadcast Journalism. Now, I know you're excited to hear from Amanda, but before we do, just a little bit more on the titles that she's been working on. At any point during this webinar, let us know in the chat if you want a sample of any of these titles, and we'll be happy to send those to you. Video, Digital Communication and Production covers all aspects of video production, from pre-production to production and post-production. The 5th edition has undergone extensive updates with a refreshed design using contemporary images and addresses the need of modern technology, equipment, applications, and platforms, including video editing examples using the most recent version of Adobe Premiere Pro. Now available on the companion site, over 40 downloadable video and audio clips help busy instructors model chapter concepts and enable their students to visualize, create, and edit with a practical hands-on approach. Additionally, Amanda created 10 tutorial videos and accompanied assessments that reinforce important concepts such as shot composition and camera movements. And if you teach photography, Digital Photography Portfolio to Profession teaches the principles and skills required to gain competence in digital photography, including applications for smartphones. Designed for students who are interested in making photography a future career or lifelong passion, this title includes a chapter on commercial photography, including soft skills, marketing strategies, and methods to operate a photography business. Later chapters even include techniques for specific photographic situations such as action and events, outdoor photography, travel photography, and portrait and studio photography. The most recent edition of that includes 3 new chapters for an additional focus on improved lighting, mobile photography, and mobile post-processing. Portfolio assignments also engage students in creating a variety of images as they build their own portfolio. And lastly, television production and broadcast journalism provides students with a comprehensive introduction to the television production industry and the necessary technical skills for success when entering this field. This text goes beyond camera operations and video editing skills as students explore career responsibilities in broadcast journalism, script writing, directing, and techniques for both traditional studio production and remote location work. The most recent edition of that book had been updated with current examples of professional technologies, methods, and techniques, as well as the impact of streaming services, social media, and modern recording technologies on the industry. An updated art program also reflected emerging technologies and appeals to the modern-day visual arts student. And so now, without further ado, Amanda Clark, our author, will take it from here. Amanda?
Hi, thank you guys so much for joining. We're going to go over kind of, I think, a little bit of a unique situation here. So instead of just talking about the texts, I'm going to take you guys through kind of how I run my TV production program. So in case it's kind of hard to tell, I'm actually standing in my TV studio right now. This is my set that you saw in some of the pictures. I have one of the LED panels on. And this is actually my classroom, which is really great. This is a newer set that we had built right before COVID hit. And then the orange one over here that you only see like half the wall of was the original set from the 1980s. So this facility is about 12 years old. I actually taught, or I was a student in this program way back when I started in 2008. And we were actually just in a little teeny tiny room off of our media center. That's now the textbook room. So we moved from that tiny room to this big facility. And I got to spend 3 of my 4 high school years in here as a student. And this is where I learned to like fall in love with video production in all of its forms. I eventually went to school at UF for television news, and I did some time with NPR while I was there. And then I worked at a station in Jacksonville before I moved home and decided I wanted to start teaching. So I got to take over for my old teacher, which was a really like crazy experience because I think I was like 22 at the time. I'm turning 31 very soon. And being able to have this facility and have the students that I have is so absolutely incredibly amazing. But I also know that not everybody has these types of resources, which is a big thing that I wanted to carry into all of the titles. So like Abby mentioned, I've worked on 2 of these titles already with the 3rd one coming up. So I'm going to take you through kind of how I run my program. And at any point, if you have any questions about how I manage the grades, where I get inspiration for the projects, just pop it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them. So we're going to go through the class and program overview. I'll go through the competitions in TSA and SkillsUSA that we compete in, working with what you have and utilizing the facilities and equipment that you have, and then how you advocate for your program. So go ahead and hit the next one. So I teach television production, and we kind of colloquially call it SETV, so Southeast High School Television. This is digital video production / TV production 1 through 5. So I know some people are like, how do you have 5 levels in a 4-year high school? If my students have the availability as seniors and they have an open elective, I actually take them twice. So they get to have me for 2 of their 7 class periods, which is really great. And it allows them to work on more long form projects, which I find really helpful. I'm also in a Title I school that is an international baccalaureate school as well. So I have all sorts of different types of kids. And I find it really important to give these kids an area where they can be creative and kind of burst out of their regular boxes. I was an IB kid myself too. And when I was in this class, this really was my creative outlet. And it was kind of like a safe haven, right? I could explore new things, try new things. And video and photo are so subjective as like a media and an art form. And it was really cool for me to be able to have that relationship with the teacher and get that feedback where it wasn't like, oh, you got X amount of questions wrong, instead of focusing on feedback and growth. And that's something that I've carried into my own teaching practices. In TV1, we learn about studio productions and we also learn about editing, and TV 2 through 5 is really focused on editing and filming your own productions as well. And we do that, of course, in Adobe Premiere Pro. I know some people might have Final Cut, and I find that even though Adobe kind of is the industry standard, a lot of the same concepts can also be applied to Final Cut. So if you are teaching Final Cut or another editing software, like, don't be deterred. There's stuff in here for you as well. There, perfect. Okay, so this is something that I'm really excited to show you guys. These are my kids. I took these like 2 weeks ago, and they were working on their commercial project, which I'll talk about briefly. These are my TV1s, and they are running all the equipment on their own. You can see that we utilized this set right here, actually right over there. That's where the second picture was taken. And then this is actually our control room space, which you'll see kind of over here on this side. On the opposite side of this room, I also have an editing lab, and we're getting ready to transition into that space at the beginning of next week, which is really exciting. So you see, the kids are running everything. I don't do anything. We spend the first quarter learning about the equipment. So I take them through everything. The kids walk in knowing absolutely nothing. They know how to like take a picture on their phone. That's kind of it. So we go over what is a camera, how does it work, why do they look like this and not just the ones on our phone? How do we use that to frame good shots? What are good shots? What do they mean? What is shot theory and all that good stuff? And then we take them through the control room. So they learn audio board, switcher, teleprompter. They learn how to direct. They learn how to assistant direct. They learn how to talent. And I know some of these terminologies might be interchangeable, which is fine. So just if you have questions about, about that, just ask. So yeah, I just wanted to show you what my kids do in class, and they're really great, and I'm super lucky. I do have 5 sections of them this year, which is the most I've ever had. So I have a lot of kids who wanted to take the course, which I find like very flattering and very humbling. So I'm like, teaching is fun, right? And I think that as long as I'm having fun, the kids are having fun, and they'll be hands-on and they'll be engaged. So next slide, please. So these are the class projects. I briefly talked about this already. So the first full project after we've gone through and they learn about all the equipment is the commercial project. So basically the students are responsible for picking a product, writing a 60-second script, and then partnering with another student who then writes their director script. So they learn how to direct, they learn talent, they learn how to operate the camera, they know how to floor direct, how to run the audio board, how to run the switcher, how to run the teleprompter, and how to assistant direct. This is also scalable to another studio production called the Fresnel project, but I'm constantly adjusting my curriculum. I don't think I've ever had 2 years that have been identical, and that's because I really try to take into account what my students want to learn, while also, of course, meeting the standards. So normally we would do another studio production after this, but they were like, we really want to edit, Ms. Clark. We really want to know how to film on our own. And I said, heard. So we're going to be jumping into editing next. And we do this all with a rotation system. So my classes typically average between 25 and 30, which is a lot of kids when you're dealing with a limited amount of equipment. And so we have a rotation system that basically gives them a number, and that number moves on each production. And we have as many productions as we have students. So say we have 24 students in a class, we have 24 productions. So that way every student has an opportunity to learn everything. This commercial project typically takes about 6 weeks to get through, because we do, I think, 3 productions. I had to like check my list, like 3 productions a class period, sometimes 2. But by doing that rotation, they are held accountable for all of that knowledge that they've learned at the beginning of the year. And they also have a chance to fill in for places if a student is absent, which I think is really great. So this is the commercial project. If anybody wants to see what this looks like, I have recordings available. Just email me my infos at the end of the presentation, and I will happily send you a couple of copies and examples. And if you want to try this in your classes, if you have something similar to this, please let me know. This is something that I actually did as a student back when, and I've modified it to fit my students better now, but it's very effective at teaching you everything that you have to learn. And also what's really great about this is I think it takes some of the fear out of it, because a lot of kids come in and they're like, Ms. Clark, I don't like talking to a large group of people, or Ms. Clark, I really don't want to be in front of a camera, or Ms. Clark, I'm really scared to push all these buttons. And because of how I have the class set up and how I have the lessons, they basically get, they review the knowledge, they get tested on the knowledge, and they have a hands-on application. So it gives them a lot of different checkpoints to check in and make sure that they're getting all that knowledge reinforced. So next slide, please. So this is for TV3. So I skipped TV2 briefly, because TV2, we focus on industry certifications. And that's just reinforcing everything they learned in TV1 and then getting them ready for industry certs when we test in Premiere Pro. So my TV3s currently are working on a short horror film, and it has to be silent. There's no dialogue. And so we did a lot of time in class preparing, like, how do you convey emotion without using dialogue? How do you do that with just music and sound effects? How do you frame things to make it feel like something is there? So we watched a lot of clips from Jaws, and we watched a few other school appropriate clips, which is always kind of a challenge to find good ones that are like school appropriate. But I try to kind of break away from some of the traditional TV production projects, right? Because I do obviously use my own book in my class, which is a whole other really cool thing. But I want to try to get them to leave well-rounded, because one of the things that I had a lot of really great experiences in my program as a high school student, but one of the things that I wanted to bring in as a teacher is I wanted to give my kids options, right? When I was here, it was either you go into sports broadcasting or you go into news. And those were the only 2 options that I knew about as a high schooler, right? And so obviously I was like, I don't really like sports. Like, I can film them, but I don't really like them. So I'm going to go into news. And after I got out of news and when I came back and started doing teaching and writing and then doing my freelance projects, I'm like, oh my God, like, I really love just telling stories and filming and editing on my own. So even though this short horror film might fit more into a like film class, I try to give the kids these options. So they do a little bit of everything. They'll make news packages. They'll do a podcast. They'll do short films like this. They will do club promotional videos, right? Where I have them go around to the different clubs on campus and film a video that we can air on our morning announcements. So they get a little bit of everything so that way they can see what they really like. With this video, they have 2 minutes. It's only filmed on campus. So they can't take equipment home with them like I normally allow them to. They have to stay here, which as they get further and further, and I give them some more restrictions to help them like be more creative, because like, yes, it's easy to grab a camera. It's easy to go film something at night, but how would you film this on a school campus? And my admin thankfully is really supportive, and we'll get to that in the advocacy section in a little bit. So one of the things that I'm doing with this project that is a little bit different, that I got the idea from another TV teacher in the county, is it's filmed in groups, but it's edited individually. So obviously when you are behind the camera and you're filming, you need someone to film. Like you can't really film yourself, right? So I have them filming in groups of 3, but they're all taking footage and they're all editing their own cut, and they're all like adding their own twist. So I did this by giving them the parameters, reviewing their storyboards with them, reviewing their scripts with them. And I'm still going to have like 10 different films, even though they're basically only filming in 3 groups. So this is the first time I've tried this, which again goes back to we're constantly evolving. We're like constantly trying new things. And I'm really excited to see how it turns out. The rough edits are actually due on Friday. So I'm very much looking forward to sitting there during my planning period and like looking at what my kids have created. And I am very lucky where my kids are very receptive to feedback. So whenever I do projects, whether it's for TV1, TV2, 3, or 4, I always have my students turn in a rough edit, right? If you have looked through video production at any point, you'll see that there is a big overarching project that goes throughout the entire book. I was very adamant about restructuring the book to reflect that when I was working on my original version a few years ago, because it's really hard to find books for this course, right? Whether it is video production, broadcast journalism, or photography, it's such a subjective field that there's not really a lot that we have accessible to us, right? And plus technology just changes so quickly that whatever is current when I'm writing might be outdated by the time the book goes to publishing, right? So we're constantly figuring out how to adjust and like make those changes. And that was why I wanted to add those like sections into the book, and to create an overarching project, is to give you guys and give other educators an opportunity to like build out a project if you didn't really know where to start. So my goal was to be able to have this book, hand it to a new teacher and be like, here, this is where you can start, adjust as you see necessary. And I'm very fortunate that my county has been very supportive. And I think my books are in all but one of the high schools in the county. And we did that for one of our new teachers. We're like, here's a set. Let me know if you have any questions. And they were like, oh my God, amazing. This is such a good starting point for where we need to be. And I also try to create this so that way you can adjust and scale as you see fit, right? Because not everybody has a type facility. Not everybody has 5 classes of TV production 1 and then 1 advanced class. Some teachers are stuck teaching an engineering course, or they're stuck teaching a coding course and then 1 section of TV production. So the goal was to create something easy, like a one-stop shop that everybody could have. So next slide, please. So this is, again, TV production 1 through 4. These are some of the projects that we work on: club promos, packages, hype videos, which are always really exciting, promotional videos, and an alphabet project. So I briefly touched on the club promos. We all know, hopefully, what a news package is. If not, whenever you watch the evening news and you see or hear an anchor talking, you have interviews, you have a stand-up, that's a package. We also do hype videos, which my kids love working on. I normally only save this for my TV4s and my TV5s. So we try to do hype videos for every sport on campus that we can. So we always do a football one. We try to do boys and girls basketball. We try to get baseball and softball if we can, and just the other sports that kind of come along. And the kids have so much fun. That's, I think, one of the most creative projects that we do, because it lets them get really creative with their videography. It lets them try a whole bunch of new things with their editing techniques. And so that's when I can be like, I've taught you everything you need to know. Go out and try it. And my kids are like lining up, asking if they can be the ones to make the hype videos, which is really exciting. We also do promotional videos. So right now, my club president, Neelam, is working on a promotional video for our high school, because we're about to enter registration season, as I'm sure you guys are as well. And we're like, we need kids to come, right? We need to keep our enrollment up, get them engaged, get them excited. So we had a video that one of my really awesome kids made a few years ago, and we're updating it. So we're getting new drone shots of the campus, right? And they're going to go out and film tomorrow. We're going into classrooms. We're filming sports. We're filming clubs. Like they're filming all of our CTE classes because we have my class, and then we have engineering, culinary, business, and we have ag and a lot of others. So we try to hit as much as we can for these school promo videos. We'll also do promo videos just for clubs in general in case they want to run those. And then another project that I do that's a nice little recap is called the Alphabet Project. And I'm sure that we have some teachers who have done something like this already, where you say, hey, alphabet A through Z, you need to film either an object or an action that goes with each of these. And this is, I find, a really great project for my TV2s after they've been back for a couple of weeks and they've kind of like brushed off all the cobwebs and they like re-understand what shot composition looks like, how to operate a camera, and it helps them be super, super creative and kind of break them out of that bubble. So lots of different projects, lots of different things that I've tried over the years. I'm happy to share these resources with you if you would like them at any point. And again, my contact information will be at the end of this project, or at the end of this slide presentation as well. Next slide. So this is my program overview for my club. So everything that I've discussed up until now has been just my class structure. So I also lead the after school component, and that is also known as SETV. So I have typically about 40 to 50 students depending on the year. And we do a ton. Our biggest job is honestly filming live events. So we film football, boys and girls basketball, we film baseball, softball, we film volleyball. We also do award ceremonies, we do concerts, and we often get asked to do things for people in the community. So one of my students was asked to do a commercial for a local hair salon. So he borrowed some equipment, he went out, he did that. And the lady was really nice. She made a donation to our program, which is all that we ask for in return for this, like for people in the community. And then she also tipped him like $300. And my kid was like, Ms. Clark, what do I do? Can I accept this? And I was like, you did the work, right? And he goes, yes. I'm like, then yeah, keep it. Like, you make money off of doing this, and he was just like so flabbergasted. And it was like really cool to be like, yes, your skills are good enough to earn money off of, which is like one of our shining moments as teachers, right? Like, oh, you have done exactly everything that you need to do. We are also on contract to film the Florida TSA award ceremony in about a month, I think. So that was also a donation to our program, and we will take all of our portable equipment and we will go to Orlando and we will film the award ceremonies, and then we'll get a donation. Sorry, I've been teaching all day and like running my mouth all day. I'm sure you guys can understand. But it affords our kids like a really great opportunity to like learn how to do this in the real world while also still being in a really safe environment. Like, they're still at school, right? They can make mistakes and they can learn, and it gives them the opportunity to try different pieces of equipment as well. So I have kids who have been running cameras for 2 years, and they're like, Ms. Clark, can I learn how to switch a basketball game? Absolutely, come on in. And it's really neat watching the kids find their niches, right? And we also offer full commentary, which you will see kind of at the bottom. So training kids to do commentary is really great. We also have replay. We have 5 cameras. We have full graphics. And my kid, I don't have to do a thing. And it's so heartwarming to be like, these kids understand it and they know exactly what they're doing, and they can put together a professional level broadcast. And these are high school kids, right? It's so cool. So if you want to click over to the next slide for me, Abby. These are my kids. Oh, these are my after school kids. And they're so cute. I'm sorry. I have to brag on them like as their teacher. So this is our annual club photo that we do for the yearbook. We do have TV shirts that have our little logo on it. And then on the back, it says TV crew member. So that way faculty and like people on campus are like, oh, we are where we're supposed to be. But we do one of these every year, and you can really see like all the kids. My officers are the ones sitting at the desk. And I'm losing so many seniors. So if any of you guys are high school teachers and you have seniors that are moving on, like, it's really exciting, but it's also really sad because you're like, oh God, you're leaving me. What do I do now? But yes, these are my kids. If you want to flip over to the next slide for me. And then that will kind of segue us into our competitions, because a lot of my club kids will also wind up competing for us as well. So you'll have heard us talk about SkillsUSA and TSA. So I competed in both as a high school student and as an advisor, if you want to flip over. So these are the competitions that we can participate in with like our skill set, right? So SkillsUSA is post-secondary and secondary. So it's high school students and college level. And then TSA, on the other hand, is middle school and high school. So in SkillsUSA, we can compete in video news production, audio radio production, digital cinema production, and TV video production. All of these target different things, right? So video news production is they have, I believe it's 90 minutes to take a stack of stories and convert that into a 3-minute newscast. So you have a student who acts as a technical director and director, a student who acts as the floor director, and then 2 talents. So they all work together to write their scripts that they then have like 20 minutes in a studio setting to record it, get something on tape, and then that gets judged. Audio radio production is they arrive on site, they are given a prompt, and they have to create a radio news package, very similar to NPR. Digital cinema production is they arrive on site, they are given a prompt, and they have to make a 3 to 5 minute short film on site. TV video production is similar, but this is like a commercial prompt. So a prompt for audio radio production would be, how would public funding help a local community college, and like what are their needs, right? Digital cinema production, you could be given a theme or a genre or a title, and then you have to make a movie that fits those criteria in like 3 to 5 minutes. TV video production is similar to audio radio production in the fact that it's all on site, but it could be create a promotional video for SkillsUSA Florida. So kind of similar theming where it's like on site, they have a target, but the themes are kind of different. And with TSA, which is something that I am really passionate about, Technology Student Association. So this one typically, I find gets overlooked a little bit in the TV world. A lot of people kind of migrate to SkillsUSA. But we have a very large TSA chapter here at Southeast. We have also about 40 to 50 kids. And the TV focused events are STEM mass media, on-demand video, digital video production, audio podcasting. And on the middle school side, you have vlogging and community service video. So STEM mass media is brand new this year. So we're trying to figure out exactly what everything is supposed to look like. But the general gist of it is that you have an annual theme, and you have to create a news story that gets submitted, recorded as a video. And then when they get on site for states, if they make the semifinals, they then have to attend a press conference and write a web story that then gets submitted to judge for the finalists. On-demand video is also on site, but it is way more creative. So you are given typically about 48 hours to create a video based off of either a theme, a genre, but you also have to include objects and a phrase. So a couple of years ago, we had to include like a shoelace, a watch, and a cup. And we had to use the phrase, I think it was like move your feet, lose your seat. I think that was it. And then they had to make it like action. So these kids work in a team of 2 to 6, and they film all of this at the conference, and it's typically between 30 seconds and a minute. Digital video production is one of those events that are worked on throughout the year. So they'll get the prompt in like September, and then they have to make a 3-minute video, also with documentation, about that given theme. So this year's theme for us is we actually have to include animation, which I don't teach. So it's been interesting learning the animation process like alongside my kids so I can help them and troubleshoot as necessary. Last year's theme was high fantasy, which I'm sure if any of you guys are familiar with high fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, that's kind of challenging to do for high schoolers. So that was a really fun experience for them. And they have to do documentation for all of this as well. So that includes their inspiration, copyright releases, the equipment that they used, storyboards, scripts, all that good stuff. Audio podcasting has a pre-submission element and then an on-site element to it as well. So for audio podcasting, we would get a theme like review an object, like it has to be a review of something specific. And then this year, which is new, that when they get on site, they then, if they make the semifinals, have to do another component of their podcast. And we don't know what that's going to look like yet either. After that, we have the 2 middle school events that are very video focused. So we have vlogging and community service video. Fun fact, I actually wrote half of the vlogging event without meaning to, and National TSA took it and ran with it. So I kind of inadvertently created this like competition for middle school, which is also really cool. So they have to do a series of short vlogs based on a theme, submit them for pre-submission, and then they have to do some on-site challenges when they get there. And community service video is a video about some community service projects in their area. So there's a lot of really great opportunities for TV video production kids. There's also a photography event in TSA that I neglected to mention, and also in SkillsUSA. So there's a little bit of everything for everybody. So SkillsUSA, in my mind, it's very more CTE focused, so, and very much like real world skill focus. And then TSA encompasses everything STEAM. So you have a lot of engineering, you have technology, obviously, you have video events, you have photography, you have extemporaneous speaking, you have debate, you have dragster. There are, I believe, 36 high school events, and I think the same amount of middle school events, but that typically changes from year to year. But there are opportunities in both CTSOs if you find one that you really enjoy and that you really want to stick with. And I find that the kids have a lot of fun with them too. And that is really honestly like the big draw for us as advisors, because I have a co-advisor for TSA. And it's really great watching them figuring this stuff out and again, try new things and just being able to expand on the knowledge that we give them and put them in a situation where they actually have to apply it and compete with it. And typically our kids tend to do very well, which is really great. So next slide, if you don't mind. So these are, again, my kids. So on the left, you'll see a picture of one of my last SkillsUSA groups of kids at the state competition. You'll see a lot of them have medals, which is really great. And then on the right, that is my TSA chapter from last year holding their nationals trophies. And you can see a bunch of our past ones like in the back. I have a couple of our state championship trophies over here. I have some in my office that are right there. But it's really rewarding being able to see your kids like come home with like hardware and be like, yeah, like we're good at what we do and we've been like rewarded for it. So those are those two CTSOs. If you want to flip over to the next slide, please. So this is something that I wanted to touch on with everybody. When I was working on video, I was like, there's no way that everybody has this kind of a space available, right? People in my county don't have this kind of a space available. And so my advice to everybody is going to be just to work with what you have. Most kids have one of these, right? So what I did, especially during COVID, was I gave them projects to do on their phones. And you can still use the same videography principles and photography principles on your phone that you can use on a studio camera or a little camcorder. And that is what I suggest everybody try to do. Don't let it stop you from teaching this type of a class. There's always something that's doable. Another piece of advice that I have is to find events that your students are naturally interested in, right? So for us, like I have kids who want to do hype videos. We do hype videos. I have kids who want to film commercials. They get to go film commercials. So whatever your kids are interested in, you can kind of start pulling them in there and then adjust and like make assignments from there if you need to. And like I mentioned, your phones are a fantastic tool. Use them. A lot of times my kids' phones are higher quality than the little fleet of class cameras that I let them film with. This camera is better than the ones I let them film with. So if they say, hey, Ms. Clark, I have a way to get my footage from my phone to my computer, can I use it? Absolutely. And also too, like with their phones, kids are a lot more comfortable using their phones than they are sometimes using a camcorder. So it's all just, like I said, adjusting to what you have and adjusting your expectations and working to their strengths too. Because a lot of these kids are really great videographers. They think, oh, well, I just make TikToks. Like, I don't do that. Yes, you do. So it's like asking them what they want to do, going from there, making it a lesson. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Abby, for me. So the last thing that I really wanted to touch on with you guys is advocacy, right? How do you advocate for yourself, for your kids, and for your program? So I have this broken down into 3 different levels for you. We have the county and the district, we have your school admin, and then you have your kiddos, right? So at the county and district, you will probably go through them for equipment purchasing. I know in Florida, we have something called CAPE funds, and we earn that money through our industry certification. So basically every student that passes an Adobe Premiere certification, that's a little check mark, and then we get some money put into our account so that way we can spend that on classroom resources like buying cameras, buying microphones, or whatever else we need. You'll most likely go to your county or your district for equipment purchasing or equipment support. In Manatee County, which is where I'm located in Bradenton, we actually have a designated like TV department within our district called MSTV. And so they will come and they'll troubleshoot any equipment that I have with any of this. And they are a huge, huge resource. Obviously, I try to troubleshoot anything that I can myself because they're very busy and they have to service all the high schools, middle schools, and the elementary schools because like they're getting this stuff in elementary school now, which is nuts. And I love it. but you will need to go to them for support, or obviously learn how to troubleshoot some of the stuff yourself. And then any support that you need with your CTSOs, right? So with Manatee County, it's kind of an expectation that the CTE courses participate in the CTSO, whether it's SkillsUSA, TSA, FBLA, FCCLA, HOSA, whatever, right? So they will be kind of your support for participating in those CTSOs. So whatever you need, my suggestion is typically start with your district because they might have more funds available. A few years ago, we passed a millage tax countywide. And not only did it give teachers an increase, but one of the important things is it had money specifically like earmarked for CTE programs. So after it got renewed, that budget went toward like the arts department. I think the next one will go to like music departments, right? So when we got that first batch of money, I was contacted and I was like, hey, or they told me, hey, Amanda, we're working on refurbishing equipment. What can we do? What do you need? And the equipment that I came in with when I started teaching was actually the equipment that I learned on in high school, which is insane if you think about it, right? Considering how quickly like our phones change, those cameras are basically like fossils. So we worked together and we came up with an equipment list for all of the high schools. And that's how we wound up with this and then my control room. And there was some money left over in the budget, and that's how I got this. So all of the equipment that we have did not come from the school itself. It came from the county. And like I said, we are very fortunate in that respect, but it makes it kind of not tedious, but like when there are equipment repairs that need to happen, I have to go through the county. If I need a piece replaced, I have to go through the county and see if they have any backups available. And if they don't have backup available, how much money am I going to be out in my CAPE funds? The next little bit of advocacy is your school admin. And this I know is always very fun. So scheduling has been, I think, the biggest headache out of honestly any of these items that you see on this list. I do not envy my assistant principal that has to create our master schedule. So getting the right kids in the right places can be tricky. And you have to be willing to speak up, be like, hey, I need Neelam, Will, and Remus in my first period class, because if you want us to do morning announcements, I need the kids that have that skill set. And just having that relationship with your administration so that way they can be like, okay, let's see what we can work out with those kids' schedules. So for example, I normally refuse to teach TV1 layered with TV2 because those two classes require a lot of hands-on attention. So in TV1, I am bouncing back and forth between kids, between computers, between equipment. I don't have the ability to also do that with my TV2s who are refreshing their editing knowledge and getting ready to take their industry certification. However, I can layer TV3s and 4s into my TV1 classes because they have that base knowledge and they have the ability to work independently. So I work typically very closely with my admin, be like, hey, I need Ivan in my 7th period, which means he's going to have to also be in with the TV1 class, but he can work on his own. Or I have a smaller TV1 class, I can take 5 or 6 other advanced kids that couldn't fit in my first period class. So it's all about, like I said, establishing that communication and being in the same loop with your admin. You also have to be in contact with them for filming permission. So this has been an established program since I was a kid here. So admin pretty much lets us do whatever we want within reason. We go and we film whichever games we want. I just let our athletic director know. And we have access to all the buildings that we need access to. And then also advocating for yourself in class versus out of class. So what I mean is like my classroom stuff and then my extracurriculars. I need very different things for those two groups. And thankfully, like I said, my admin is very supportive. I actually just got off the phone with my assistant principal before I hopped on the call with you guys about reformatting our morning announcements. So it's very much a two-way street there. And also just being very clear about what you need and when you need it. Is going to make a really, really big difference. And then advocating with your students. You have to recruit. Unfortunately, not everybody thinks this stuff is as cool as I do. So I have to like convince kids, and I get the kids to talk to their friends, and I get them to have their friends come in for a shoot or come in for a class. And normally once they start doing things, they get really excited. And you're like, oh God, like I want to be in here. I'm like, yes, you do. Come to my class. I have poached a few kids from culinary and engineering, but that's okay. But a lot of things, because I'm in the back part of campus, because this is a whole building, a lot of kids don't even know I'm back here. So it's about advocating for yourself, like getting the word out about your class, having your kids also do that for you, because honestly, I could talk to I am blue in the face. Kids are my most effective recruitment tool. And so I get a couple kids in that are really passionate about it, and then they get their friends in here, and that's how the program grows. At the beginning of the year, I had 70 interested kids in the after school program, and I say dwindled, but now I'm down to like 50 kids. And that's all because of the word of mouth of their friends and the advertising that we do across campus. So I get the word out on our morning announcements, and we also hang up posters. So I'm sure at the beginning of school, everybody's schedule is absolutely crazy, right? So I get posters hung up before the kids come back, and I start hounding people to start talking to each other. And that's how I can keep my base like consistent and like growing all the time. And again, that goes for after school versus in class, getting some kids in class and then also getting some kids after school. I have a lot of kids who can't fit the class into their schedule, but they come in and they do the after school club too. So these two things are not mutually exclusive. You do not have to do the club if you're in the class and vice versa. There's space here for everybody. And that is something that I have tried really hard to facilitate as an educator with my kids. It's just something like there's a space for you here, whether you want to be in front of the camera or behind the camera, or whether you're interested in just doing some writing, interested in just doing some filming for hype videos. I found a place for every kid that I have here. So I believe, is that the last little bit, Abby? Did I just like zoom through this? I think I did.
Yeah, we're on questions.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah. So go ahead. If you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat and I would be happy to answer. So I see one. What course or courses do you suggest to start at the middle school levels? So great question. In Manatee County, we have like a TV production light kind of version. It's brought up with our media specialists at the middle school level. So what I have told our middle school teachers is if you can start with just like basic shot composition, fantastic. Having kids understand that before they come in is honestly just a really huge help. And I do have a few kids who come in with some experience from their middle school, which is insane now because I guess like everything has started to like trickle down, right? And I visited a few middle schools. I've talked to their kids. I've talked to their teachers. I've given their teachers like my camera handouts that I've created so they can share that with their students. It's just finding the kids one is always kind of tricky. But I also help the middle schoolers make their announcements, which is in my mind absolutely crazy. Like there are middle schoolers who are switching and like editing, but you don't have to go that far quite yet. So if I were you, I would just start with camera composition and go from there. I find at the middle school level, having them take pictures is really helpful. I know it's a video class, but sometimes filming video can be a little scary, especially if you don't have like a stabilizer or you don't have like a class set of cameras. So if they can just take their little phones and then just pop them like this or pop them like this, if that's what you decide you want instead, that is a really good place to start. I'm not sure of the actual course name for middle school TV equivalents, but I do know for us, it's wrapped up with our media specialist and like, it's like some digital media something with us. Okay, are there any certifications they should earn to follow this path at the high school level? So I teach Adobe Premiere Pro, which I love. I use it professionally. That's what I learned. Actually, I learned to edit on Avid, which I don't even know exists anymore. But then we transitioned to Premiere Pro. So I've been editing on Premiere Pro for like the last 10, no, oh God, that sounds so long ago. Like 15 years, give or take. And that's what I'm really comfortable with. I know that at least in Florida, in order to earn like the full credit for the certification, they have to take Adobe Premiere Pro and they also have to pair it with an additional certification. So that certification will either be Photoshop or After Effects. A lot of the kids want to learn After Effects, which is great, but I will tell you from my experience that the Photoshop exam is much easier for them to take. So the Premiere and then Photoshop or Premiere and After Effects certification will then create like this video certificate that Adobe passes on to the kids. Also, I find like, even though industry certifications are great, I haven't had a lot of kids come back and tell me that it made a really huge difference because I have kids who have great practical knowledge of the software, but they couldn't pass the test. And I know the tests are obviously continuously getting more difficult. And I'm always, just on a personal level, very hesitant to teach to a test. I want my kids to understand how to use the software first and foremost and understand the principles behind it. But typically it's Adobe Premiere, and then I would recommend Photoshop unless you really want to be ambitious, and then also do After Effects. we did kind of loosely teach to the certification in video production. But the stuff that you need for the exam is stuff that you would need to know how to use Premiere anyway. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1, like 2 birds, 1 stone kind of a situation. Any other questions? You can pop that, like how I structure my grades, how I structure anything else that you guys want to see from me.
Maybe a little bit about the grades would be helpful, Amanda, and maybe we'll get one more question after that.
Yes. So what I do with I'll jump into TV too, right, for this. So when I do a project, so say we're doing right now the short film, right? So I have it broken down into a ton of little tiny components that all build up together. So it breaks down basically pre-production, production, and post-production, which again, you'll find in the book. So they have to come up with a brainstorm. They submit that. I go through that with them one-on-one. We kind of go through a rough plan, and then they decide on their final assignment, and then they go. Then they submit a script rough draft. They submit that to me. I review, give feedback. They submit their final. Then they do a storyboard and a shot list together. I review those with them, give them feedback. And then I have a time of like, I think typically a week and a half to 2 weeks after that, they have a rough edit due. So this rough edit needs to include obviously like their music, their audio. It can be a little rough and obviously like rough in some places, but that allows me to sit with them one-on-one and go through the feedback saying, hey, maybe like, I don't think the shot composition works here. Can we maybe try this type of an angle? Or the dialogue here doesn't really seem to work. Or, hey, there's a jump cut here that we really want to try to avoid. And I am able to catch all those little things that they haven't been trained to kind of look out for yet. Then they take those notes, they go back out, and then they film, and they come back, and then they give me their final edit. So from start to finish, a project typically will take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, depending on like field trips and stuff and what else they have to be out for. But all of the, so I don't do like weighted grades. I just give things higher percentages, which is kind of like an artificial weight. So basic assignments are 100 points. The rough edits are 150 points, and then the projects are 300 points. So everything scales up and builds up. But because I have this broken down into so many different sections, it really enables me to get in there with them and give them that feedback and watch them be able to make that progress, even just from like their rough edit to their final edit. I've had some kids who have sat with me before after their rough edit, and they're just like, I'm going to go refilm everything, which isn't necessarily always what I want them to do. But sometimes they're just like, I want to start completely over and try it again. And most of the time it winds up working really well. For the commercial project that we talked about at the very beginning with my TV1s, they are graded on each individual crew position. And then the director and talent positions are graded the highest. So it's a 300-point project. So that carries through all 5 levels. But director and talent are like 60 points each, right? So that's 120 points out of 300. That's more of a third of their grade. Then they have, I believe it's 45 points for switcher, 35 for audio, 10 for assistant directing and assistant floor directing, 25 for floor directing, 20 for cameras, and then 15 for teleprompter. And so all of those like little teeny tiny bits add up to the 300-point project, and they can do extra credit, make those points up. They also have to do things like they have to bring in their products. They have to remember to make their lower third in the switcher. They also have to make sure that they have their own script ready to go in the right format. So it's all just figuring out like how these pieces play together and scaling it so that way it is appropriate for what they're doing. So the commercial project that I discussed with my TV1s, it took about like 4 to 5, sometimes 6 weeks, depending on the year. And I want the grades to reflect that, right? Like this is a 6-week effort for this project. They need to be given a good chunk of amount of points. So that's how I kind of do my grades. Across the level, I do occasionally do quizzes. I do more quizzes in TV1 than I do in 2 through 5. Those are 150 points. Like I said, basic assignments are 100, and the projects are the big 300 points that I have available. And this is just like a teacher thing that I've learned, or that I've kind of created the last couple of years. I actually allow late work, which I know we have a lot of very different opinions as educators about late work. But for me, because everything kind of scales, if they miss one and they don't make it up, then they have missed, like they can't do the rest of it. So for the commercial project, right, if they didn't do their product proposal, which means they didn't tell me what object they wanted to work with, they can't write their script, which means their director can't write their script, which also means that they haven't had a chance to practice. So what I do for my grades is I have basically 2 windows of opportunity to turn in late work. So I have from the beginning of the quarter to like 2 days before progress reports. They can submit anything within that window. They have to fill out a late work form because I'm very busy, like we all are. So that way I can go and check like, oh, hey, like Annalisa submitted the product proposal 2 days ago. I know to go back to that assignment, look for her specifically. So I'm not clicking through all of these assignments. And that cuts off at like 2 days for progress reports. And then after progress reports have been posted, I don't take any work that was from the beginning of the quarter to that point. I'm like, you're done. Because I don't want to be, and I'm sure none of us want to grade stuff from like the first week all the way at the end of the quarter. And then I have another window from after progress reports until a week before report cards, so I have time to go in and get everything fixed. I utilize what I call a late work form, and it's hyperlinked in all of their classes. And it's just their name, their class period, their TV level, the name of the assignment, and what they've submitted late, or if they are redoing it to earn back like credit that they missed. Because for me, like I'm an elective, right? I have no illusions about like this should not be a hard class. However, I know for some kids, technology just doesn't come naturally to them. So I try to give them as many opportunities as I can to like reinforce, like understand what's going on, like get the concepts, because ultimately, like if they don't understand shot composition, for example, they're going to have a really hard time at the end of the year when they're filming their own videos. So because I'm an elective and because everything builds, I do try to be flexible with my kids in terms of like missing assignments, redoing it for credit. Now, do they take advantage of it? Not always, but the opportunity is there for them. I also allow them to come in obviously before and after school, like I'm sure we all do, to get one-on-one help with me because classes are busy and you sometimes have some really shy kids that just don't feel comfortable asking in class. And for me, like this is supposed to be a fun class for everybody. So like I said, will do what I can to help them understand what I'm covering in my classes.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda. And
Yeah,
I'm
thank
sure
you.
you've all seen, I'm going to put her email in the chat because I think you had mentioned, if people had questions about any of those projects you shared or anything, you're happy to communicate with them. For everyone who's on, if you would like a certificate of attendance or participation sent to you for attending this webinar, we're happy to do that. Just email me at ahess@g-w.com. I'll put that in the chat right now as well. And I know a bunch of you have mentioned that you want samples sent to you. Again, you can let us know that. We will send an email out. It will either go out tomorrow afternoon or Monday morning with the recording of this webinar. And you can also always respond to that email to request samples of anything you saw here or connect with your educational consultant if you'd like. We want to thank Amanda for staying after school late in her studio to be able to do this, and everyone else who attended probably after school to watch this.
Yeah.
I think we learned a lot today. Love seeing pictures of your kids, Amanda, and thank you so much. We hope everybody has a great rest of their week.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And if you need anything, please do not hesitate to email me. I'm happy to share everything that I have. So thank you guys so much.
Wonderful. Have a good one, everyone.